All right, and we're live. Ruheene, super excited to have you here with us and to have you be speaking at the GHL Engine Summit. For everyone who's watching, by the way, the GHL Engine Summit is is a 3-day mega webinar for everything that you need to know on how to succeed with Go High Level. Today we have Ruheene, who's a speaker at the summit. The event takes place June 19th through the 21st, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Ruheene, how you feeling?
Good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
What are you going to be speaking on at the GHL Engine Summit?
I'm going to be speaking about how to build brand equity in order to make your business, your brand, and every single offer way more valuable in a way where it actually resonates with the right audience and you never have to compete on price ever again.
That is a powerful statement. What is brand equity? Like I mean, I hear the word equity, I'm thinking of real estate, and I'm like, okay, that's the distance between what you bought it for and where it's valued at today. What is brand equity when you say that?
It's pretty much the same thing. So it's the value of when you start a business to the value of your business today.
Okay,
So
okay, I like that. I like that.
yeah. So, I mean, it's all about building it in a way where it continues to grow, right? If you start focusing too heavily on a specific offer or a feature, or anything really that isn't building your brand or your business brand. When I say brand, a lot of people think about personal brand, which has its own place and is extremely important as well. But when I talk about brand equity, it's for your business in a way that just increases the value of that business, regardless of whether you're trying to scale it, launch it, scale it, or sell it.
Okay, and how do you build brand equity? What constitutes the additional value?
So you do that by understanding, first of all, everything starts and ends with your customer avatars. So I talk a lot about customer avatars. And it's really about understanding your target audience in a way that goes a lot deeper than just this is their demographic, this is where they live, this is where they hang out, right? And these are their pain points. It's more about understanding them as actual humans. And so the analogy I like to use is if you're trying to convince, let's say you want to go to a movie and your best friend or your spouse isn't all that interested in that movie, but you know that they're going to get something out of it, you probably know exactly what to say to them because you know them so well. You probably know exactly what to say to them to get them to go with you anyway, right? And selling should really feel that effortless. And it does when you understand your audience on that deep level. You really understand them as people, you know, what they're looking for socially, emotionally, mentally, and not just on the outside based on a bunch of pain points that you're solving. So when you start to really understand your audience in that way, you start to serve them in that way, your messaging, your positioning, your offers, everything that you put out there aligns with that brand narrative that you start to build around your customer avatar. That starts to build your brand equity. And then everything that you talk about, everything that you offer, every idea that you launch, as long as it's aligned with that brand equity that you've been building, it becomes a lot easier to sell.
Mm. So it's what I'm hearing so far. It's really about understanding how to communicate to that specific person, similar to a friend or a family member. You've built a relationship with that friend or family member, so you truly understand that person, and you know how to kind of what buttons to push and what to say and what not to say. What you say will get them pissed off. What you say will make them happy. So you understand how to communicate, or like even your spouse, like you know those specific things. You need to be at that level of relationship with your customer. That's what at least what I'm hearing so far.
Exactly. Like your spouse, you ask your spouse a simple question and they snap at you and they're like, I'm just tired right now. And you're like, no, actually, I think you're hungry. Let's eat something. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, okay, okay. And what puts you in a position to support entrepreneurs on building brand equity? Tell me about your background.
So I've been doing a lot over the past, what, 20 years now. I feel like I keep saying 16 years, but I just realized yesterday that I've been saying 16 years for a few years now. So I'm going to round that up to 20. So for the past 20 years of, my career, I've been doing a whole lot of different things. And I started out by working on visual effects films. So like I've been on, a few Marvel movies, Cirque du Soleil, a whole bunch of movies basically, that where we really use the power of storytelling in order to get buy-in in entrepreneurial terms and business terms, to get buy-in from your audience, right? You take them on a journey in order to sell them a vision. And when I started getting into marketing after that, and when I started getting into starting my own series of businesses that initially all failed, so that's a different story. But when I got into it, I realized that the story is the same. You're still getting audience buy-in. You're showing them your story and your why, making sure it aligns with their why, and you're taking them on a journey to teach them or show them or give them something of value by the end of it. And so storytelling when it comes to movies isn't so different when it comes to launching and scaling a business. So
Mm.
so after spending 8 years in visual effects, I moved on to working with an advertising company where we had clients like Apple and Amazon and Motorola and Radio Shack back in the day, and Microsoft, and a whole bunch of these bigger brands, where I actually got to be a part of a lot of different product launches. And two of the key ones that really shaped a lot of what I did since then, and I'm talking 2012 to 2014, that 3-year period, was being a part of the iPhone 5 launch in 2012, and then the Amazon Fire launch in 2014. And there's a lot that I teach about positioning and messaging and branding that really comes down to my learnings from both of those launches, because one of them was a $3 billion launch and the other one was a $17 million fail. So
Mm. And through those experiences, you're able to support entrepreneurs in identifying how to identify their brand, their story, their position, their message, and market and their marketing message to the marketplace to acquire more customers. Is that right?
exactly, yeah. And translating those systems and messaging and approaches from these bigger brands to an entrepreneur that maybe doesn't have that kind of budget, or likely doesn't have that budget, wasn't a straight path. So it did take me quite a few years and a lot of trial and error through my own businesses and failing through my own initial startups, to really understand how to translate that and translate those systems in a way that democratizes them and makes them more accessible to small business owners.
Is there a framework that entrepreneur now you're going to be speaking at the GHL Engine Summit, which is a 3-day mega webinar, everything you need to know on how to succeed with Go High Level, June 19th, June 20th, June 21st, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific. If you want to buy a ticket, if you're watching this and you want to buy a ticket, go to ghlengine.com/summit. We got some people in the chat box saying relationship building is very crucial. It should feel natural. That's a great way to put it. Thank you for those of you who are watching. Be sure to comment in the chat box if you're watching this live. Now, is there a framework to follow when positioning the brand and getting yourself known?
Absolutely, yeah. And that framework has become a lot easier to actually navigate now with AI as well. So we're going to be talking a lot about that. But the framework, yes, it's all about how do you actually, if you're starting out from scratch, how do you build brand equity? Like, how do you start? Like, how do you build a brand, right? A brand isn't your fonts and your colors. It's about the communications. And like you rightly said, or someone in the comments said, it's about how you communicate in an authentic way and build authentic relationships with your audience. And so we're going to be talking about how you do that, how you build a narrative around your brand based on that customer avatar that you're targeting, how you make sure that every offer or idea that you have is being validated in a way that actually is going to reflect what your actual audience is going to say, not just what ChatGPT is telling you is great or innovative, and how that aligns with that brand, right? In order to continue to build brand equity. So with every offer, every launch, you want to make sure that you're continuing to build that brand equity. And then every piece of content or every conversation that you have with your audience after that, it's all about building that narrative around and building your brand equity. So, yeah.
When you join us at the GHL Engine Summit, what are some key actionable takeaways that some people are gonna be able to take away from joining us at the event and seeing you there live?
So you're going to be able to first identify if you have been building brand equity or not, because when you start to think of it that way in terms of just this offer worked, this offer didn't work, let's try a few more things, let's do some A/B testing. When I hear A/B testing, I'm actually hearing spaghetti throwing, because that's usually what A/B testing ends up being, right? A lot
Spaghetti
of people
thrower.
think a lot of people think they're being very like analytical and strategic with A/B testing. Like, yes, I'm so like data oriented, but it's really not. A/B testing was great in the days where it mattered whether your button was going to be blue or green, and you wanted to get some A/B tests on that. But today, like building a successful business and building a successful brand is so much more than just the colors of the buttons right on your page and which one's converting more. It's really about, again, everything right now is so important about coming down to how well you understand your audience, how well you understand their stories, and how well you can tap into those emotional and social aspects of those stories and have more authentic conversations, build more authentic relationships. So through this, you'll be able to see how the bigger brands do it, how brands like Apple actually do it, what brand-led growth means, which is something that Apple has been doing for many, many years, how Amazon has a product-led approach, not a brand-led approach, and how that has cost them, even though they are hugely successful, undeniably successful. It's a completely different approach. And as an entrepreneur, as a small business, it's really important to be aware of which path you're going on and why, and how that's going to help you scale in the long run or exit, depending on what it is that you want to do.
Is there a way to calculate brand equity? I'm thinking of like the real estate, right? We can say, okay, there's $60,000 of equity in this deal. Is there a way to calculate actual equity in the brand?
There isn't, unless you get really deep into more business tools. And so now you're talking about, your EBITDA and other things, and those things really add to it at the end of the day. And it all stems from your brand equity. But that's a really good question. I'm actually going to dive deeper into that to see if there is a way to at least do some sort of a measurement.
Yes.
So you have an idea of where you're starting and where you're ending. But yeah, usually brand equity, again, it's the worth of your business, right? And how it all stems from brand equity, which is usually something that happens kind of by the way. And so this session is going to be all about building that intentionally.
So tell us a little bit about your brand equity brainchild, Hey Levi.
Yeah, so I mean, Hey Levi was born because of all of the years that I spent between working with these brands like Apple and Amazon, and then launching my own businesses and using those businesses as guinea pigs. Um, I've tried multiple businesses. I've been a marketing agency, and before my marketing agency, something that I just mentioned to you, Andy, before we went live, was that I was a newborn photographer for a couple of years. That
Yes.
was fun. Not a lot of people know that. Not something I can explain
All
why.
of them, we feel special, the viewers and I.
It was a very random little segue in my career where I wanted to just start something new based on a hobby. Photography has always been my hobby. To see how many of these learnings I could take from these bigger brands and just apply them to any small business. Doesn't matter what it is. Anyway, so long story short, I've actually had a few businesses since then. They've taken off, and then they've stalled, and then they've grown, and then they've failed. And there's like always this trajectory of struggle before you give up on a business because it's just not consistently growing. And I've been through that cycle long enough where I started to identify what was missing. Like, what are the pieces that don't just translate one to one from a bigger brand to somebody with a smaller brand with a much smaller budget and a much smaller outreach. And so starting to build those systems, build those frameworks, and then having AI come in 2022 was really exciting because now I could use AI to help plug in and fill in a lot of those gaps that typically you needed a larger team, larger budget, more resources to do. Now you can have AI, and if you do it correctly, which I see a lot of people not doing it correctly because they're just going to ChatGPT and saying, "This is my offer. This is who I'm targeting. Help me position this." So that would be an incorrect strategy because ChatGPT has no idea. It's just filling in the blanks and guessing what it is that you want it to say to you. So that's really, I don't know if I kind of went off track over there, but
No,
that's
you're
really,
hitting the nail.
yeah. So
You're
that's
hitting.
really what we're going to be talking about in terms of how do you approach this using AI intentionally, strategically, in order to build this thing called brand equity in a way that actually increases the value of your entire business and every offer that you put out there.
What do you have to say to someone who's on the fence about joining us at the GHL as we wrap up and we leave our final message? Like, if someone is on the fence, they see you, Ruheene, and they're like, man, I'm at the start of my Go High Level journey. I'm at the start of my agency journey. I'm at the start of my online business journey. And Ruheene is talking about she's working with Amazon, Apple. She's had businesses in the past. I'm at the beginning of my stages. Like, Ruheene, if anything, I'm inspired by her, but I see that this is a huge gap from where I am today and where Ruheene is at today. how can someone, what would you have to say to that person who's interested in coming to the GHL Engine Summit and they're on the fence?
Don't make the mistakes that I made. So with every one of my small businesses that failed, there was a huge learning curve. I wasted a lot of time, energy, money, resources and a lot of sleep, honestly, on trying to understand why is it that one offer would work, the other offer would not, even though they were so similar. I was A/B testing my life away, why that didn't work and how to do it from the very beginning. So if you're starting out, it's actually the best place to be in, because if you're already a few years into your business, this is still going to benefit you because you're going to be able to really take a step back and take a look at the brand equity that you have built intentionally or unintentionally, and how you can start to be more intentional about that. But a lot of that requires stepping back to see what needs to be undone, or stopped in what you're doing in order to actually start doing more of the things that you should be doing to build this. So if you are just starting out, it's the perfect time, because now is the time where we can help you not make some of the mistakes that a lot of us who've been in business. Andy, I'm sure you can relate. When you first start out, you think it's going to be a lot easier than it ends up being, and you start hitting these walls hard and fast, and you're like, I don't understand why this won't work for me. I feel like I'm doing everything that people are telling me to do, and it is not working.
Yeah, this is huge. You heard it from Ruheene yourself, ladies and gentlemen. 3-day mega webinar on one event, everything you need to know on how to succeed with Go High Level. You're going to be able to see Ruheene speak at the 3-day event, June 19th, June 20th, June 21st, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific. Get your tickets. If you haven't yet, go to ghlengine.com/summit. Once again, that's ghlengine.com/summit. And I'll see you there. Bye for now, everyone. Bye for now.
Okay.